Let's go.
What a lovely day!
Andy, there's a whole world out there. Jump in.
Can you dig it?
Yeah.
You must always pay strict attention.
I was just completely enamored by it the entire time.
Dude, he did not have to go that hard.
I know, man. Isn't it wild?
The Jared Cast.
So it begins.
Good morning, Space Cowboys. Welcome to the Jared Cast. Today we're talking about an iconic anime series called Cowboy Bebop. You should have known when you clicked on this thing that we'd be talking about it. I don't know. But I'm very excited to talk about it. It was kind of my gateway into anime television. I liked anime movies before I watched this, but to me this was the big hook for me. And it was for a lot of other people back in 2001. We'll talk more about that later. But I'm excited to do it. With me is my guest Jared Lombardo.
I'm a guest now. I've been reduced to a guest.
No, I'm just kidding. My co-host, co-producer, the lovely, talented Jared Lombardo. How you doing today, Jared?
I'm better now. I'm doing good. I'm good. We had a little break for us. Not the audience can't tell, but it was refreshing. There was a lot of episodes to watch. Got to see my family. Got to watch bounty hunters in space shoot motherfuckers. So what's not to love?
Hell yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
Hell yeah. Also, in recent news, Bo Burnham just got his first Emmy last night.
Yeah. Congrats, my boy.
Do you know what it was for?
No. I stopped caring about the Emmys and VMAs and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only the creative Emmys. I think they'll do the other ones. I think either tonight or tomorrow. I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting time for TV. But I'm excited to talk about this TV show. But before that, we got another interesting TV top 5. What you got for us, Jared?
We do. We're sticking with the theme, pretty heavily with the theme on this one. Top 5. A lot of people praise the intro of this song, the opening credits, and so we're talking about opening credit scenes. Usually musical. I guess they don't really have to have music behind them. Yeah. I guess there's not really much else to it. It's opening title sequences. What you want me to do some deep analysis, audience? No. Jared's going to tell us his number 5 instead.
This was the hardest top 5 I think I've ever done. I have like 5 honorable mentions, and I didn't even include Cowboy Bebop in this one. So I although I do love that opening sequence, I went with 5 that I think are equally like awesome and great just to me in general, and ones that I can keep going back to over and over again. The first of which being the Bob's Burgers opening theme by John Dylan Keith. I think it's a fun little song. It's got a dainty little guitar on it, or ukulele. I don't know what it is, mandolin. But I love not just the music, but the visuals too. Like it's kind of the same repeating thing over and over again of them. Of the Bob's Burgers grand opening getting screwed over and over again by fire or by pests, but what they change every time is the pun of the store name right next to the shop. And the pun of the exterminator, and they do a different pun every single episode, and they're like well over 100 episodes deep. But what I love about that thing is that it really captures the spirit of the show, of like, these guys are losers, but they're lovely and they're together, and I love the Belcher family for that.
Yeah. They if I wrote our honorable mentions down, they would probably be my number 6 on this list.
Hell.
But in the number 5 spot is a live action show. I felt like I had a lot of animation on my list. And so I threw some live action in here to spice it up a little bit.
Nice.
And that's Flight of the Conchords.
Ooh.
A very simple yet elegant one. It's just weird and goofy and like minimalist, and that's kind of what the show is. And
Yeah.
so it's just, I don't know, it fits. The salt shakers shimmying around always puts a smile on my face, even if it's a little out there and strange. I just like it, and it's kind of nostalgic for me.
Nice. Yeah, great show. My number 4 is also a great show. It's a great comedy, also live action. It's The Office theme by Jay Ferguson. I like both the visuals and the song for this one because as soon as you hear the first like 3 notes, you know exactly what song it is.
And you
It's also
rush to
catchy.
skip it because it's real aggressive out of nowhere.
I love it. And it's instantly recognizable. It's catchy. You can da 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 da. I love it. It's great. And I get to see all the beautiful faces of all these characters that I love. I get to see them just interacting around the office. Yeah, it's got a lot of sentiment attached to it because that show has been a part of my life since like 4th grade. So, yeah, The Office.
Okay. Coming at number 4, I've got my first animation on the list. One that I don't think, unless Jared has binged it recently, I'm not sure that you've seen. Bojack Horseman. Ooh, we
Nope.
talk about it too much. Yeah, it's great. Like we've kind of been hitting home. It sums up the character pretty well. Great song composed by Patrick Carney of the Black Keys and his uncle Ralph Carney. It's just a still shot of Bojack in the center of the frame as he like gets blasted on drugs and alcohol, but he has just a straight face. He's like walking through parties or like on set of his like acting jobs, and it's just real trippy, very unique. There's not really any other out there. And you just see the apathy that he has for the life that he's made for himself. And it's cool. It's groovy.
Hell yeah. Yep. Still haven't seen BoJack Horseman. Still need to jump on that
Yeah, eventually.
My number 3 is I think it used to be available on Netflix. I don't know if it still is, but it's One Punch Man season 1 opening. It's my first anime on the list. It's the song. What plays is the song "Hero" by Jam Project, but you see a bunch of flashy imagery from the heroes and the villains that get introduced in season 1. You also get to see Saitama, the main character, punch a few things, being the One Punch Man. But what I love about this in particular is that the song is like really. It captures the spirit of the show because the spirit of the show is kind of about mocking bravado and mocking hero masculinity and mocking just the idea of superheroes in general, but then actually having legitimately cool superhero moments in the show. So the song is like a really weird and funny Japanese screamo song. And then it actually kind of gets cool in the middle. Like you get your blood pumping, it gets it gets you excited and makes you want to, I don't know, bench press a freaking thing through the roof. It's great. I love it.
Nice. Obviously, have not seen it.
Yeah.
Jared hasn't made me into a weeb yet, so we're getting there. Number 3 is one that you should have seen, and that everybody should have seen. It's definitely one of the bigger nostalgia kicks on this one. Back to animation, but childhood animation. with
Yeah.
Fairly Odd Parents. This shit's a banger, dude. Its pace is insane. I love its big band energy.
Yeah, dude.
Cowboy Bebop actually kind of reminded me a bit of it. Not that there was any influence there
No.
whatsoever, but they're both big band jazz based, and so
Yeah.
they were similar for that reason alone. It's funny. You get introduced to all the characters, even Vicky saying "bad twerp."
Love
It's
it.
great. It's fantastic. It's a great song. They've since bastardized it, but the first 9 seasons, I think it is fantastic.
Hell yeah. I love Fairly Odd Parents. It's such a crazy show. Even just thinking about it, I'm getting all these flashbacks of all the crazy stuff that I've seen.
No one understands.
Oh, oh no. Yeah, my number 2 is quite a bummer. It doesn't really invite any nostalgia or joy or or just general happiness at life, because it's the opening to season 1 of True Detective. Uh, you get a lot of really awesome. It's the song "Far From Any Road" by the Hanson Family. It's a very moody, very melancholic, kind of backcountry tune. But what I really love about it is the kind of triple exposure effect that they do. They weren't the first to do this, and they weren't the last. But I think it's one of the best uses of that technique, of that CGI technique. There's this really great shot of Woody Harrelson's face, and the highways are coming up and like really framing the bones in his face, and it looks really cool in framing his expression. A lot of it is about tying the environment to the characters and environment to the people, because that's kind of what the show is. That's a big part of what the show is about. It's also just really like visually stunning. Like I never skip it when I watch True Detective. Even though there are only 8 episodes, I don't know, 6 episodes, I don't know, I forget. But yeah, True Detective season 1 is my number 2.
Groovy. I actually have still not seen that show.
Oh,
despite hearing all positive things.
Yeah, that's great.
My number 2 is a show that I think we actually talked shit on either last episode or the episode before. I was making fun of it the other day. And that's Dexter. We're back to live action.
Oh, yeah.
Say what you want about the show. The opening title sequence is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's if you haven't seen it, it goes through. It's a show about a serial killer, and it goes through like mundane things that feel like somebody's getting murdered. It's like somebody's putting jelly onto toast, but it looks like blood on a knife, and then it cuts to the toast. It's just funny and it's creative, and they did an excellent job with it. And it's a shame that the whole show wasn't made with that much tender love and care.
Yep. Yeah, I actually watched it in preparation for making this list, because I watched this compilation of all these great anime, or not anime, but great opening TV credit sequences.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, good choice, great choice.
Thank you, sir.
For my number 1 of the opening opening credit sequences of all time, it's an interesting. My number 1 took an interesting journey, because it used to be, or when I first made the list, it was the Muppet Show, but then I realized oh wait, no credits actually play over this theme, so I can't pick it. And so I ended up just doing a tie between 2 that I love. One is for the other Shinichiro Watanabe show called Samurai Champloo. It's the song Battle Cry by Nujabes, but the visuals also highlight the differences and the individual characteristics of each of the 3 main characters, while putting them together in and comparing and contrasting them, showing why they butt heads consistently along their journey, and why they eventually come together. A lot of symbolism in there too. I won't get into that, but but there was that, and then the other one was Phineas and Ferb. I love this show a lot. It's I think the last great Disney Channel program. I haven't really seen a Disney Channel show since it ended that could that's as good as it. And the song "Today Is Going to Be a Great Day" is a great summation of the entire show. Which I haven't seen the entire show, but I've seen enough episodes that like I think I know what I'm talking about, and I think I love this song a lot too. So yeah, nice.
Yeah. If New Jobbies is involved, I'm a fan already. For the first pick.
Yeah. He became popular in America because of that show, actually.
Oh, really?
He pretty much did the whole soundtrack. Yeah.
Talented man gone too soon.
True.
My number one, if people are fans of me and friends of me and family of me, this should really be no big surprise. It's The Simpsons. Really breaking new ground on this one. A lot of hot takes coming in early.
I was like, he's definitely either gonna do The Simpsons or SpongeBob. Like,
yeah. No, it's got to be The Simpsons. As much as I hate falling into the cliche, saying that they're the number one, they are. So have that. Their couch gags are always fucking creative and often hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been let down by a single one, even in the newer seasons. Say what you will about those. But after 706 episodes, you'd think that they would feel old by now. But they're always like worth watching. And I think that's an incredible feat. Some highlights of mine were there's one that they turn into a flip book at the end. There's one where they turn into an MC Escher painting and they all come in from like the ceiling and walls and shit, and it's confusing and fun. Yeah, every single one is a classic, and I love it, and I love the show. So number one, The Simpsons.
Yeah, one of the goats. Well, do you still watch it weekly?
No,
Oh, okay.
I gave up a bit ago. I'll still go back and watch older episodes, but
Yeah.
my uncle, literally since it aired, has watched it live every single fucking week.
Damn, that's a lot.
And he actually, it's insane. And he like started with the comics, like that it was like that Matt Groening got his start at. Like he's insane. He actually recently got a Matt Groening signed photo of Bart that was like saying his name, and he got invited to a table read of an upcoming episode. And so I guess the fandom pays off.
That's great. Yeah, like honestly, mad respect for all the Simpsons fans that hung in there that long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And there's people who know every single reference to every single thing. And like, there's some hardcore Simpsons fans. I wish I was that insane about it, but I just don't have the mental capacity.
Yeah. Did you have any honorable mentions you wanted to throw out there?
Not off the top of my head. I do like the Community opening, but I just like everything about Community too. So that's that's pretty much the reason. Fresh Prince was definitely up there as well. I think they have the best theme song, but as far as openings go, it doesn't quite make my list. Yeah, probably just some of those.
Yeah, I got a few. I got Stranger Things I want to throw out there. Very, very beautiful. I got George Lopez on there. Low Rider. I love it. It's great. Parks and Recreation, obviously, is a big one for me. Kim Possible is a great one for me. And I also threw in Freaks and Geeks because very, very, very great show, and also like the top five encapsulates the spirit of the show in just a few seconds.
Yeah, I kind of yoinked this from Listen to This. We did favorite TV theme songs.
Oh yeah,
and I had some hot takes on that. I claimed that Fairly Odd Parents had a better song than SpongeBob, which isn't that hot of a take, but it might piss people off.
Yeah.
But the big hot take was that Zoe 101's theme song was better than Drake and Josh.
Ooh.
I stand by that. I'm doubling down.
Dude, I haven't seen an episode of Zoe 101 since it was out. That's crazy. I
Yeah,
did.
and
I,
go
sorry,
on.
go. I met one of the cast members in Chick-fil-A one time.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking up his name right now. Christopher Macy, who plays Michael.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was like, because my friend recognized him, and I was like, but she was too shy, so I went up to him. I was like, "Hey, are you famous?" And his friends started laughing at him. He's like, "Yeah, I was on Zoe 101." And yeah.
That's fucking awesome. I once met Drake Bell, but turns out he's a pedophile. Anyways, should we talk Cowboy Bebop?
We should. Thankfully, no pedophilia in this one, in this anime. One of the reasons why I picked it to start. No. I picked it to start because it's kind of the series that like I said, that I started with. It was one of my gateways into anime television. It was the same for a lot of Americans in 2001. When it originally aired in 1998, Cowboy Bebop was very limited because of violence. So you only got episodes 2, 3, 7, 15, and 18 in Japan. And then in 1999, they put the entire run on satellite TV. And then it actually came to Italy before America. But when Adult Swim put the English dub in September 2001, almost 20 years to the day that we're recording, actually. It was on a constant loop for 4 years straight because it was so successful. And it's been on air at least once a year since 2007, even in the switch to HD in 2015, and then worldwide. And since then it's gotten unanimous critical acclaim since its release. It's in many all-time best lists, near the top 5 at least. 100% on Rotten Tomatoes out of 22 reviews. Iconic imagery in pop culture, Firefly and Brick and the reboot and multiple hip-hop artists have all taken influence from Cowboy Bebop and its ability to remix and create new things out of different genres. But I don't think the love is completely universal. Yeah. What you got for us for this?
Cool.
Bad reviews.
Well, I can tell you it's not completely universal. In today's episode of Jared reads poorly written reviews of movies or TV shows or anime, whatever this is, that we're watching because it's funny and it makes them laugh and stuff. Mostly,
Nailed it.
Actually, pretty positive. It was a struggle finding a bad one that was good, and so I found this by Lanka Christina. 3 out of 10. As overhyped as a series can be.
Okay.
This comes from 2019. Seeing an almost 9-star rating on IMDb, I got myself thinking, boy, this must be an awesome show. And the feeling of excitement lasted, probably for the first 2 episodes. As a matter of fact, I had to force myself to finish it, thinking this classic will somehow justify its high ratings. Yeah, right. Yes, the music is great. Yes, the cowboy-ish themes of gunshots, coolness, and chill are well done. But the fact that the plot of this anime is non-existent makes every other aspect of the show less important.
Okay.
There are probably 4 or 5 episodes to tell the story of the main crew, and everything else seems to be giant filler that is rather inconvenient at times. I cannot emphasize how irritating the endings of some of these episodes are. Someone gets shot, the episode ends, and he's right back alive and well on the next episode. What? However, there were some things I did enjoy. Ed is such a sweet source of humor that had me giggling at times. The references to Earth in the 2000s, like the VHS tapes, had me feeling nostalgic. The last 2 episodes are very well done. However, I feel some of the bounties the crew chase would have made better villains than Vicious. All in all, if you have no trouble watching this jazzy, cool thriller anime with no actual plot, go right ahead. On the other hand, if you want just an anime that'll sweep you off your feet with a good story and character development, go watch Code Geass? I don't know.
Gias.
Geass. That one was not a waste of time.
Yeah. I okay. Yeah, like this person, I guess, was expecting a serialized structure.
Yeah.
After,
Yeah.
especially if you're going in expecting, because Code Geass, I just finished it this year actually.
Mm. Did it sweep you off your feet?
No, it didn't sweep me off my feet, but it's good. It's good. I think it's a little weird sometimes. A little definite, like a 1,000-year-old body or 1,000-year-old person in a teenage body, and then they
one
have
of those justifications.
They have some nude scenes, yeah. But other than that, it's okay. It's a good show.
Okay.
I definitely won't show it to you because it's too long. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I no plot at all is really
No
interesting
plot at all
if they watch
is
the
a bold
entire thing.
Also saying the bounties the crew chase would make a better villain than Vicious after they already got whole episodes dedicated to being the villain was
Yeah.
kind of funny to me.
Yeah.
They are the villain. That's the point of those episodes.
So dumb.
And the cowboy themes were great.
Yeah.
Gunshots, coolness, and chill.
Chill.
Make up westerns. That's
honestly, the gunshots, coolness, and chill is probably the original draw for a lot of the for a lot of the main audience or the original audience. Yeah. But yeah, I really loved it. Oh, sorry.
No, I was. You're good.
Okay.
Hey.
My bad. Yeah, I really love this show. I love all the characters. I think the entire crew of the Bebop is so precious to me. They feel like real people, even though they're drawings, and one of them's even a dog. Ein feels real to me. Makes me want a corgi at least sometime in my life. From start to finish, I'm fully invested in their journeys and in their kind of self-discovery journeys that don't really that sometimes end in heartbreak, and that's okay. The show is still manages to be fun despite its sad subject matter and its existential attitude. I think Faye is one of my favorite characters in television history. She's extremely well written. The femme fatale was itself a subversion in the peak of noir cinema, but Faye is also a subversion of that trope, and I think she's incredibly well written, and super likable, super fun to root for. The overall show, it feels both thrilling and meditative. And I can't get enough of it. I've seen it. This is only my second time watching it all the way through, but I definitely, there are a few episodes that I rewatch over and over and over again. We'll get into those later. And when I originally watched it, the ending kind of threw me off at first because it's very it leaves a lot out in the open, but and I was also not expecting there to be nothing after, which was like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh, there's a movie, right? And my friend was like, no, it takes place in between 22 and 23. I was like, shit. But when I fall in love with a show, I want it to last forever. But for Cowboy Bebop, I think the sense of fleeting impermanence in the story and in the narrative and the timelessness of the aesthetics are what really makes this show special. What makes this show, in my eyes, not just an anime, but a transcendent piece of art. I don't think it's the greatest TV show ever made. I don't think it's, even the greatest. It's probably not even the greatest anime ever made, but I absolutely love it. I'm giving it a, there's 2 episodes where I'm kind of like whatever. So, but even those are super rewatchable. I think 9.8. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually was pleasantly surprised by it. I went in not expecting to enjoy it, but what I got was a fun little ride. It was out right off the bat, episode 1. I was like, this is the most Jared show I've ever seen, because it's about space bounty hunters kicking ass to jazz, and I was like, that's that's Jared to a T.
It's Space Tijuana, by the way. Like
It's Space Tijuana.
So good.
Yeah, and so I like it a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. It's endlessly creative. The fight scenes are insanely well done and probably some of the most consistent I've ever seen in a TV show. If you can make a character fight with a sword and a pistol and have it be engaging and like believable, you've done something right.
Yeah.
I love all the like philosophies of life behind it. There's a lot of like nihilism in here, which is cool, and it follows a good tragedy plot line. I do kind of wish there was some sort of through line through some of these episodes. I found myself kind of being like, okay, binging it, this feels kind of the same a few times, kind of early on and in the midsection.
Yeah.
But like episode, I think 18 with the VHS tape that kind of gives you the Faye backstory, the Speak Like a Child.
Yes.
That's when it really like took off into something above and beyond for me. I kind of craved more of that backstory. I'm with you. I think Faye is my favorite character. If I had to rank them, I would go Faye, Spike, Jet, Ein, and then Ed. I hated Ed.
Really?
Ed was fucking obnoxious to me the entire time.
Oh wow.
When she leaves, it's supposed to be this like heartfelt thing, and her exit was done very well. But I was like, finally, this chick is out of here.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she was just like, I get her role in the show being like a comic relief because it is a very dark and sad show, despite how fun it is. It's still got that noir grit tragedy aspect to it. But I don't know if she was it, man. I'm sure we'll talk in detail about her. Maybe
Sure.
you'll change my mind. I do think it's a show that would benefit from rewatches, trying to pick up on little details and clues of their past, because that's kind of all they give you is little morsels throughout. But I think it was a fun show. I think they mixed genres well. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it a 7.7.
Nice.
And so that's that.
Hell yeah. I'm glad you liked it. And I'm glad you're on board with the show. I had an extra page just in case you didn't. So this makes my life for this way
I'm
easier.
sorry for making you waste that extra page.
No, it's not a full page. It's fine. But but yeah, like Jared said, in that last little bit, this mixes a lot of different genres. Most prominently neo noir, western, and sci-fi. So what did you? Well, we could start with science fiction, I guess, because that's kind of the most prominent, I think, besides western. So what did you think about the sci-fi vibes in there?
I actually really liked it. I think that you can tell the creators are true, genuine fans of every genre they put in.
Yes.
Because this sci-fi isn't like kind of just masturbatory toward future technology. It's not like, ooh, look at this cool thing we thought of, like, ooh, space travel. This is the world. They just inhabit it, but we're going to make it about these characters and these are adventures. It's kind of why I like Black Mirror so much. It's like, here's this subtle tweak to the world, and here's how characters are influenced by the technology around them. It's kind of the Ray Bradbury approach to science fiction.
love it.
And I really like it for that. I think having Faye be a direct victim of technology adds a lot to the sci-fi aspects of the show. But I also thoroughly enjoy that it's just a backdrop for this Western noir kind of genre. Um, for me, the science fiction aspects are mostly the set and setting of the show rather than like there are obviously space fights and like people
Right.
are shooting each other in spaceships, but it still feels like, oh, this is people on horseback shooting at each other. Like this doesn't feel like science fiction. It feels more like toward the Western side of things. And so I just like that it's just the world, and it's not, oh, look at us, we can think of microwavable meals and thumb people.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, 100%. I think you nailed it. Any references or homages that you picked up on that you want to shout out?
Boy, you know I'm terrible at this. I'm, I'm always bad. I mean, there's a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot of references just throughout the entire show.
Mhm.
None of them really jump out at me. I'm always bad at picking them up, and then I see people say them, and I'm like, well, that wasn't my idea, so I'm not gonna plagiarize your thoughts. But
Right, right. No,
yeah,
yeah, I get it. I think the only like visual one that I picked up on was one of the bumpers for the TV thing was it was the Flash Gordon font. I thought that was pretty neat. And then instead of the lightning bolt, it had Jet's ship in there.
they did
I
have a slow mo, literally to a song from 2001 that was kind of in your face about it, but
yeah. I there's that one, and then there's like a another reference to 2001 when he tosses the harmonica up in the air at the very end of Sympathy for the Devil, which is one of my favorite episodes. There's also a lot of, I think, Blade Runner is kind of is pretty much the most influential neo noir at this point.
they even have a villain named Decker pretty early on.
Yeah, and yeah, it's an interesting thing because it took a while for America to embrace Blade Runner, but Japan actually embraced it right away, and they a lot of what you see from 80s, 90s, and early 2000s anime creators is their influence from Blade Runner, and so you see that in a lot of the settings here. Like Jared said, the technology is just a part of life, but one thing that stuck out to me immediately was that it's that life is still derelict when you're living like an outlaw. It's still brutal. It's still harsh. Everything is dirty. The freaking spaceships are all, they're scratched up and they've got bullet holes in them. I love that they had the Columbia space shuttle just totally rigged in the back of a garage to take off just randomly. I love it. There's an homage to Alien in the general structure of Toys in the Attic. The only sort of slasher episode in the thing, and the only bottle episode in the series. But yeah, I think you nailed it. The space portal or gateway causes the entire it enables travel throughout the solar system, which allows people to leave Earth at the beginning, or not at the beginning, but they slowly reveal this as we go on. But it destroys Earth. It results in breaking the moon and is the direct or indirect catalyst to many issues and conflicts in the show, especially Faye. I think her story is not cautionary or dystopian, as a lot of sci-fi tend to be, but it's like Jared said, it's very Ray Bradbury. It's a human story with sci-fi stuff. When you read the Martian Chronicles, that book isn't about Mars travel or how we're going to colonize Mars and all that stuff. It's about what it means to be a Martian, and this story is a human story about what it means to belong somewhere. And I think that really resonates with me deeply, and I love Cowboy Bebop as a sci-fi specifically for that. I also love that everything is kind of that they have constant throwbacks to analog technology. In order to stop the hackers, the space hackers, Spike has to switch to an analog radio. Same thing with the key to Faye's life, which all her digital files were erased because of the meteor shower. But they find a Betamax tape, and that ends up being a key to her discovering who she was. I think it's absolutely great.
I love that it's science fiction, but it's still the 90s. Like it's like just the 90s in space.
I love it.
I think it's super rad.
Yeah. I love that they dedicated like 5 pages of dialogue to explaining VHS and Betamax. It's so good. I was like, yes, thank you.
The VHS nerd was a great little cameo character.
I almost threw my soda at the screen the first time that like I watched it, because like when Jet's like breaking the VHS player with the VCR with his foot, I'm like, dude, come on. He's like, that works when I kick my ship. Okay, cool. Glad you're on board with that. The neo-noir stuff, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this was one of the more in-your-face aspects of the genres that they mix.
Right.
Which, like, in the title sequence, it even says in, like, the writing that they want to create their own genre called Cowboy Bebop. And so it's cool that they blur the lines, but they try to make something new out of it. Obviously, the main noir characters are Faye as the femme fatale, and then Jet as like rugged detective man. And I think both of them are great noir characters, but also undercut a lot of those noir themes very well. They nail the moody ass lighting and like smoking cigarettes in the dark kind of aesthetic that comes with noir. But then just like clashing it with sci-fi and Western gives it kind of a goofy, lighthearted edge at times, which is nice and needed, I think. I think if sci-fi is the set and setting of the show, the noir is kind of like the aesthetic of the show, and then dripping into a lot of the characters of it as well. No, I totally agree.
You're right. It is mostly in Jet and Faye. I don't know if the John Woo like gun fu action movies are considered neo-noir. They're certainly written like it, and so you see some of that gun fu with Spike's with the way Spike fights. But that's kind of where like Spike is mostly the Western aspect of the show. There are references to Lupin the Third, which is an 80s neo-noir anime. I don't really know it. I'm not super familiar with that at all. I think Miyazaki's first movie as a director or co-director was in one of those movies. But other than that, I don't know anything about it. I'm
a big fan. I've seen them all multiple times.
all the Lupin the Third stories.
Oh yeah, of course.
There's also, like I said, a lot of Blade Runner, which is like for Japan the definitive neo-noir. There's Pierrot Le Fou is in episode 20. Named after French New Wave neo-noir by Godard. There's a lot of chiaroscuro palettes in these episodes. A lot of we can talk a little bit later about the subversion of the femme fatale when we talk about characters, but for Jet and Faye, pessimism is a big theme in noir storytelling, and they both go through journeys separately. But both of them endure this thing of everything they knew was a lie. And when they discover the truth behind the lie, the truth doesn't help them. It haunts them even more. And so there's a cruel irony at the end of both mysteries, right? When Jet figures out why his girlfriend left him, it's heartbreaking because he's the reason why she left. And same with Faye, like she is looking for a place to belong, but she will never find it, and she can't even. Or when she finally finds it, it's all torn down. And it these are both punctuated by really amazing jazz and blues music, which we can talk about later, by Yoko Kanno. It's a really meditative, really mournful sound that I absolutely love, and I think you nailed it. I think that's a good thing about it.
Yeah, I with the pessimism that you mentioned, I do love that every character is kind of looking for the same thing in a way. They all just
Yeah.
like want to be able to move on from their past and find somewhere they belong. And I feel like Jet and Ed are the only characters that realize that they kind of already have that with each other. Jet
Right.
doesn't really realize it until Ed leaves and everybody else leaves. When he's cooking dinner in that little sad scene, and then Edward is just kind of along for the ride and is the only one really living in the moment. But I just think it's cool that they all want the same thing and all kind of got what they wanted without knowing it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a great part about the show, and a great consistent thing that they carry on through until the ending. And the Western stuff, the Western genre. What did you think?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I think they fucking nailed it. They lean into it real hard with the Andy's episode. I don't
love
remember what it was called. But yeah, I think if the sci-fi is the setting and the noir is the aesthetic, this is the like main action of it. Just bounty hunting, stoic dude trying to catch crazy outlaw. It's as Western as it gets. I think Spike is a great Western hero or anti-hero, depending on how you like to look at him. Protagonist, either way.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. They've got a lot of great villains. I love all the like thematic and just atmospheric references to just classic westerns, or even like Ronin and samurai films to an extent, even though those lines are always kind of blurred together,
Right.
because of the samurai influences on westerns. But I think they fucking just nailed it. Honestly, they get the isolation themes down. They get the good versus evil. They get the honor code rather than like Judeo-Christian moral code.
Yeah.
They just kind of check all the boxes you need for a good Western, and it just kind of ties the noir and sci-fi aspects together super well. I think it was just a noir sci-fi. I don't think I would have liked it as much because it would have just been knockoff Blade Runner.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I think the Western adds a nice little flair that makes it unique, its own, rewatchable. The shit holds up like a motherfucker, which is crazy. It's
Yeah.
almost 30 years old and it still feels fresh because they do blend those three genres together real well.
Yeah. I absolutely love it, and I think you're right. Spike is kind of the
The
he
Clint
he
Eastwood of this movie.
yeah, he's the man with no name, and they even directly give a visual nod to him by giving him a poncho in the first episode. And then he throws off the poncho and starts fighting like Bruce Lee. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like the amount of care and love and attention into the design of our titular space cowboy is really, really amazing. He's an outlaw, he's a hunter, he's a warrior, but he's bored all the time, and he's
Yeah.
and I love the bored anti-hero trope. I do see Spike as an anti-hero because he doesn't really do he does do some good things, but I think he doesn't really become heroic until the very end.
Yeah. He really only does heroic things for cash and selfish gain. So
Yeah, and but what I love about the ending and his choice to face Vicious one last time is like this time he isn't attacked or he isn't provoked directly. he isn't surprised, he isn't snuck up on by their syndicate. He chooses to attack for his own philosophical and personal reasons. You talked about that code of honor. I think you're absolutely right. I think they also have the idea of death as an escape, as a form of escape for the outlaw. You know, if you decide to go on to watch Watanabe's other shows like Samurai Champloo and Carol and Tuesday is another one that I love. He's kind of obsessed with beautiful losers and the idea that defeated people on a journey, like the idea of following defeated people on a journey, and the only way Spike really can escape his past is through death, which I think is brilliant. He talked about remixing the not tension, but the kind of symbiotic relationship between Ronin and Western cinema. I think that's incredibly prominent in the duels between Vicious and Spike. Vicious is Ronin who fights, like you said, with a sword, and Spike fights with a pistol, and it absolutely works. And it's so cool every single time. They both even pass their weapons onto each other so that they don't give each other an advantage, or so that they don't take advantage of the other person losing their weapon. Vicious is an incredible foil for Spike as a Ronin. You know, he literally kills all of his masters and kind of walks around as a classic samurai villain. Like, I want to be the strongest, so that's why I want to do this. And Spike is the drifter. He's Shane with even less motivation, and I absolutely love it. I think all the duels are extremely amazing. I think maybe my favorite one though is actually not a Spike or Vicious duel. It's between Spike and Wen in Sympathy for the Devil. I just think it's so badass that Wen shoots at him 3 times and Spike doesn't even blink. He gets scratched in the face and doesn't even blink by a bullet. And the harmonica music is amazing in that episode as well. But yeah, I know you haven't seen a lot of anime, but from what you've seen and kind of like how does this compare? How does this match up?
It's a lot different from all the Studio Ghibli films I've seen.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's hard because it's really like the only anime that it would come close to would be like the movies that we watched in Alquan's episode, or in our anime sci-fi episode, because I haven't really, this is my first anime series that I've even bothered watching, and so I don't really have it much to compare it to. But even like comparing it to other animation that I've seen, or even live action, I think it is uniquely different in that mix of genres mostly. Also, the characters are it's very character driven, which I like. I think it wouldn't be a great TV show if it wasn't. I think it would just be kind of dumb fodder if they didn't lean into that as much as they did. And so it's definitely unique because of those aspects. It's kind of almost close to Guardians of the Galaxy if Guardians of the Galaxy was depressed. Would be the closest tangent that I could connect it to, probably. I don't know when Guardians was written, if it was influenced by this or if there was any influence either way. But yeah, I think it's pretty unique and different because mostly because of that new genre that they're trying to create. It just makes for a lot of fun atmosphere and a lot of fun moments of the show. Yeah,
I agree. The animation is brilliant. It's amazing. It's S-tier animation, and all of it's hand drawn. Most of it's hand drawn. Sorry. But even the CGI was done frame by frame. Like back then, they didn't have the tech to just run a program. Like make it. They couldn't just say like make a portal and Portal would appear. They had to actually still do it.
Yeah.
So
That's
there's
why
so
it's so fucking smooth on the fight scenes.
yeah, it's great. It's great. There's so much love and attention and care. Um, the all the space battles feel super fluid. You know, I love the ones that feel where the camera is like attached and you and the to the ship, to the exterior of the ship, and the ships move, but the focus is on the gun, and so the gun starts firing. It feels like a World War II movie at that point.
Yeah.
Like I absolutely love it. You know, they reject a lot of anime conventions. You know, but they still embrace some while taking and then take other conventions to a completely different level. They embrace the Japanese obsession with jazz music. They and like I still, you know, I've seen not a lot of anime, but compared to some crazy people, but I've seen a good amount, and since watching this show, and this is still some of the best fighting I've ever seen. And when we watch the movie, I think we'll see even better stuff, even more fluid stuff. You know, he talks about making a genre unto itself. Watanabe does. I think that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but at the same time, like, yeah, like I can't think of any other show that's similar to this other than his other show, Samurai Champloo, which mixes Ronin fiction with hip hop. But yeah, I love the slow music, which is different from other anime too, and it's also very, very geared towards adults. Part of why why a lot of episodes were initially censored was because it came out at 6 p.m. So definitely not kiddie stuff here. Yeah. But what do you think about
one thing?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go
One
ahead.
thing that, like, because with my limited knowledge of anime, a lot of it's like, ooh, hypersexualized female characters.
Right.
But I like that this turned that into the femme fatale instead. They're like, yeah, we're gonna sexualize Faye. Like, we'll make her an attractive, like, sexually charged person, but she's gonna use it as like a weapon against the bounties that she's hunting.
Yeah.
And so I like that they like, we're gonna acknowledge this aspect of our show or genre, but we're gonna turn it and use it like against you in the same way we would use it against these bounties. And so I like them kind of flipping that on its head. And even like the female villains or like females that they run into aren't like super sexual characters. Like one of them's a fucking trucker that's badass as hell. Like
Dude, I
that's
freaking
just
love VT so
super
much.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll take it. They take it even further than that with the introduction of Edward in episode 9. Like Edward's a girl, but she's essentially non-binary. They don't say it in the show. But
her dad doesn't even know which.
Yeah, like the fact that her dad's a crazy person, but the fact that her own dad still forgot that she was a girl. Like I think that talks kind of that's a really progressive thing. I think it's really cool, and you know. There's a lot of anime, it's sad to say, with 13-year-old girls with big tits, and it's I don't
very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's not my thing. But you know,
you want to go on record and say you're not into child.
I am not. I know this may be controversial, but I don't.
Jared Akanon is not into child pornography.
Yeah. But yeah, like with Edward, it's a totally unsexualized girl character. There is a lot of androgyny in anime. They do like subverting that kind of thing since you know the early 90s, I think. So it's not super revolutionary that character, but I do like that that character still is prominent in the story, and they are still necessary in the story, and they're the only character that really one of two characters that gets a happy ending, because a lot of the times those characters that end up being that people throw in for diversity or throw in for progressive stuff. A lot of the time they get sad endings or they die. And it's whatever. Yeah, I'm glad you like that aspect of it. Can real quick thoughts on the music?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I loved it. I think it's a nice blend of jazz and big band stuff, and then also just like straight up Western style like songs and themes. Yeah, I think it's great. You said you listen to the soundtrack a lot when we were texting about the show before, and I probably will too. The theme song, for example, goes hard as shit. It's way too long, and I skipped it after the first 3 episodes almost every time.
It's 90
But
seconds. It's not that long.
yeah, well, the whole intro is a minute 45, and I know exactly because that's when I would skip to.
Yeah,
it's just when you're binging it, it's just a lot over and over,
and it's long for an instrumental theme too.
Yeah. But the music's fantastic. You said the name of the composer. I'm blanking on it now.
Yoko Kanno.
Yeah, she did amazingly with the show. I don't think the show would be the same without the music. It added a lot to not only the fight scenes with the jazz stuff, but also just the general atmosphere. It helps kind of flesh out the world in a weird way, even though it's non-diegetic. For the most part, there are diegetic music, like the Trucker episode's got a lot of metal in it. Yeah, I love it. One of my favorite parts of the show.
Nice. I'm glad. Yeah, Yoko Kanno is a freaking genius. This is for TV scores. This is probably my second all-time favorite.
What's number one?
Avatar: The Last
Game
Airbender.
of Thrones. Oh,
no,
okay.
yeah.
I do love the Game of Thrones score.
It is. I do love it too.
Yeah.
But I don't
it is
really
more traditional film score though.
And I don't really remember anything else except for the theme, the main theme. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly like you said, it wouldn't be the same without without Yoko Kanno's score. She actually composed most of it independently from reading the scripts and looking at the production stuff. A lot of the stuff she kind of just went cowboy by herself. She did her own thing, and I think that's an amazing accomplishment. She went on to work with Watanabe later on, and has also done Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, which is another great sci-fi series. I think the opening is amazing. The closing is also really well written, and I think the chorus of the closing is key to understanding the ending as well.
Yeah.
And I think because it's created independently, like that's one of the big reasons why I enjoy it independently. I can just enjoy it as a straight up jazz album. You know, I grew up listening to I was lucky enough to have parents who introduced me to Charlie Parker and Duke Ellington and Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, like a lot of those guys who embraced the same creative freedom and the same artistic freedom that Yoko Kanno did, and that the writers of Cowboy Bebop did. I briefly watched some behind the scenes from the show, not a whole lot, but I watched her interview, and she was saying like that usually when you're working on a big anime, like everybody's really stressed out about the story and everything, but the animators of Cowboy Bebop were the most chill crew that she ever worked. It was just like it's the perfect for this show when you watch
That's
it.
awesome.
And so yeah, I was like, okay, cool. She was like, yeah, they're just sitting around and talking, like they're not doing anything. I was like, okay, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. I will say there were some moments in the music that I wasn't a huge fan of. And almost all of them were the songs that were clearly written in Japanese and then translated to English for the
Right.
subbed version. That never works out. It's always like the weirdest lyrics that are like cliche in English but like don't make sense somehow.
Right.
And so just make a new song that captures the energy or play the Japanese version, honestly.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think that's I I don't hate it here. I think the place where that bothers me is in your name.
Yeah.
It
Oh
gets
yeah. That was the first instance that like came to my mind when I saw it here too. I was like, ah, they did the your name thing.
yeah, like the songs themselves are actually like bops. Like I would totally listen to them, but like they get really invasive when you watch it in Japanese or even when you watch it in English. Um,
Mm.
yeah. Anyway, with Cowboy Bebop, you talked about wanting a through line more, so we could talk about the story structure and just the overall narrative. Can you talk about kind of what you're expecting going in, what you liked about it, and what you didn't like about the overall story?
Yeah. Um I thought that it would be because obviously your past catching up with you is a through line throughout every single character on this show.
Yeah,
And so I thought that like every episode we'd get kind of a morsel or like something that kind of connected this episode to the next. Um, but instead, I think there's 10 of the 26 episodes have any mention of like characters' backstories. Ed's only like backstory episode is a mushroomed induced like madhouse adventure. Um, and so I just wanted like a little bit more that made me want to watch the next episode instead of just coasting on, oh, they do something creative with their villains. This one sounds interesting. Let me watch. I want something like, ooh, why what am I going to find out about these people next? Like what's going to spark my interest to keep watching? And there really wasn't much. Like I think it coasted. That desire to go to the next episode kind of just came from, oh, this is a real fun show to watch. I want to see what they come up with next. I didn't really care about Jet's background, really. I don't know why. I was
mm,
just like, yeah, he's like his love background. It gets wrapped up, I think, first before any of the other characters get closure on their traumatic past.
yeah,
Um, and then after that, I'm like, I don't give a shit about his detective past at all. Like, it makes sense for like why he lost his arm, but apart from that, like, it doesn't grip me the way that like Faye's background gripped me, or even Spike's. Spike's was cool. It felt the most cliche of all of them. This
right.
former crime syndicate guy is being hunted because he left and somebody else took over. Like I've seen that before, which for this show is rare, and so I think it kind of just stuck out for that reason. And then you know how I feel about Ed, and so I didn't really give a shit about her background, even though
Yeah,
she only got like one episode on it. I just wanted a little bit more consistent depiction of like their past or something.
mm. Yeah. I mean, it is it is a little less like it does leave you wanting more, and it does leave you wanting uh like clarity a lot of the time. I definitely picked up on like reasons why certain characters did certain things, and reasons why I like certain things more. I definitely picked on them like on the second watch this time. Like
Yeah.
I think revisiting the work is key with Cowboy Bebop. It's not something that you can just that you can just like a lot of jazz. It's something that you got to really like dig into,
Hmm.
especially because everything's nonlinear. You start with a flashback that doesn't answer that just no explanation. You barely see Spike in it. And the series kind of starts with that. Um, and then they don't really answer any of those questions that they brought up in that very first montage
Hmm.
until the very end. And
Till
even then,
yeah,
it's
the
like,
very last episode.
yeah, and even then, it's still kind of confusing. But it for me at least, it makes me want to keep the show on a loop. I really really love it, and I like that I can kind of jump in at any spot in the show. I think that
Mm.
is key when you're making an episodic structure. And I think for the through line, I it's not very straightforward, but I think it is there. I think when they uh I we learn later on that Spike and Jet meet in 2068. But that means that the entire show takes place within 1 year, in 2071 at the end of which and then Spike dies. But or maybe he dies, I don't know. But he for 4 years, that means for 3 years, he's been suppressing these memories, and he's been he hasn't confronted them at all. We actually see that in the very beginning. Like, he has these flashbacks and then he suppresses it by doing his martial arts training. And so I think the episodic structure of the show, where they encounter a new bounty every time, they fail to win financially from it. But they do what they do gain is someone else's story. They encounter a lost soul that is forced to confront their past, and that confrontation ends sadly most of the time. And the crew, I think, gradually become spectators of these people's journeys, and they become not calloused, but it's actually the opposite. Like, they become more emotionally open as the course of the show goes along. You see it in just little micro doses, in the way Spike treats Ein, in the way Spike treats Ed, who, he treats them with contempt in the very beginning, but gradually he grows to love them. Same with Jet. He becomes the father figure for everyone in the crew, not just Spike. And sort of indirectly, they become compelled to confront their own pasts. And I think I think that's a beautiful thing. I think when after we see the ending, and you see the credits roll, you see the phrase "You're going to carry that weight." I think it's not just referring to Spike, or it's not just referring to Faye and Jet, who are doomed to carry the weight of their past for the rest of their lives. But I think it's to us, because to us, each bounty is one episode, but to the crew of the Bebop, this entire year is a giant episode in their lives. And so I think Watanabe is telling us to look at what happened to the Bebop, and confront our own lives and confront our own pasts, and try to come to terms with that. And so I think that's, for me, what carries me through the entire thing, and what makes me want to dig in deeper to a lot of these minor characters. You also get frequent references to whether or not Spike is living in a dream, and so you get a lot of like symbols that tell him along the way, and a lot of characters that tell him along the way that he's not, that he's living, and that he is alive, and he doesn't become sure of that until and the last episode is about him waking up to that, finally. And I think there's, like you said, there's I think that's totally valid. The sense of fun and adventure, despite the protagonist's boredom and the sad tone of the show. I think that's super notable. And I think, were there any particular lost souls that stuck out to you as we go into the character analysis?
Yeah, the heavy metal queen, which we talked about.
Yeah.
Perot, Mad Perot, was super cool. I just like him as an antagonist too.
So crazy.
Great episode, one of my favorites. Spoiler for later in the episode. Those two were both fantastic. Man, there's so fucking many of them. They all blend together. I guess I could look at my notes for like the first time this entire
It's probably a good idea.
thing. Yeah, maybe I'll check back on that. Yeah, those two stuck out the most. Besides, like, the main cast, obviously. Yeah, I don't think there was really any that I think could top either of those for me.
For me personally, I agree with you. I love VT. I think she's a a brilliantly written character, and I like that she gets a happy ending. She's one of the few characters who does. I love Pierrot as well. I think it's very, very scary, even on a rewatch. And I love that he's kind of the polar opposite. You know, if Vicious is the perfect foil for Spike, Mad Pierrot is like like Spike's ultimate obstacle. He can kill Spike without even touching the ground. He's bulletproof, so Spike can't shoot him. And he's, like design wise, he's completely the opposite. He's fat, whereas Spike is skinny, and he kills for pleasure. Where Spike and Spike has already rejected that part of his life.
Yeah. I did remember another actually.
Go for it.
Maria Murdoch, the PETA lady. I liked her a lot too.
She was great. Yeah, one of the underrated episodes, I think.
Yeah,
I definitely like it a lot. For me, I think my favorite is Gren from Jupiter Jazz, Part 1 and 2. We get a little tiny peek into who Vicious is and what kind of person Vicious is. He says it explicitly near the end that, and even in episode 5, Ballad of Fallen Angels, that he believes that those with strength deserve to rule and everyone else doesn't. And you got to earn your right to live, basically. And so that's why Vicious betrays Gren. And I love the duel between them on the helipad, with Gren kind of putting a bomb in the drug container. And I love the use of wind in the animation in that particular duel. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Gren gets a saxophone solo because they finally have like 45 minutes of story that they can actually fit one in. I love it. And it's also the saxophone solo ends up being very symbolically important because it's a reference to Julia, who comes in later. The music box that she gives Vicious, that Vicious takes from her, is the same music box that Vicious gives to Gren. It's also an interesting story exploring gender and masculinity, and it also kind of touches on the show doesn't really go deep into it, but the dangers of corporate power and capitalism, a lot, and corporate interest, the syndicate and their interests directly leads to Gren getting scarred for life. It directly leads to the even Mad Pierrot. He gets experimented on by the cops, and so that's what inspires his killing spree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really like Dr. Landis, the computer boy.
Which one's
computer cult leader.
Oh, yeah.
That was super cool too. The fact that he was like on life support and he literally just wanted other people to live the way he lived so he wasn't alone.
Yeah.
I thought that was super interesting and a cool sci-fi episode, more so than like the Western and noir themed episodes. It was cool to have them kind of explore that sci-fi thing a little bit more.
Yeah. I also love that episode because Ein saves the day again. Like there are so many different instances where like all the humans fail, but then Ein, as a genius dog, like hacks a computer. Like what?
Because of course.
I love it. I absolutely love Ein. Yeah, that's a cool episode too. I agree. And I know you already ranked your favorite characters in the Bebop crew, but specifically, what did you think of, before we get into them? I guess, what did you think of Spike or Vicious and Julia?
I like Vicious a lot. He's a perfect foil for Spike. Just opposite in every way, yet come from the same place. It works well. I'm glad that he was like the the final boss for Spike in a way, the final challenge to overcome, whether he does or not. Yeah, I like Vicious a lot. Julia, I kind of didn't really feel like I cared about their relationship that much.
Right.
I like that she almost betrays him and that like she kind of sets him up as a trap because she knows, oh, he's so linked to me that this is how I can get to him. And then eventually goes back on it. But um, like she was fine. I didn't really feel much of an attachment to her. I think they could have fleshed her out a little bit more. Some of the episodes I watched at like 3 in the morning, and that might have been her episodes, and maybe that's why I believe them. I just think they could have done a little bit more with her, but overall, I still liked her.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Spike talks about her as she's his other half,
Uh-huh.
um, but I think that's kind of it, right? Like
Yeah,
I think
I
they
think you get
hide.
one or two flashbacks with her, maybe, and then
Well, what I'm saying is like the fact that I think it's kind of the point that they hide so much about her
Mhm.
because Spike has so much. I think that makes the void in Spike's heart feel that much deeper, and I think it to me like the fact that I know next to nothing about Julia, except that little bit that she gets with interacting with Faye, like
Mhm.
and seeing her kind of independent from both Spike and Vicious. I think that's a really cool thing, but it's only just a taste
Yeah.
because I think I the Watanabe needs us to like really understand the depth of what's missing in Spike's character and what's missing in him as a person, and why he's
Mhm.
just so much different from every other character, not just on the Bebop, but like just in life. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody really matches kind of his sense of aloofness or his spiritual boredom and his existential attitude. Uh,
Yeah.
there's maybe a couple side characters that can match that, but not to the same degree, I think.
Yeah. And I like that it adds that to Spike's character, and she does serve Spike's character well because of that. But then when she shows up, I'm like, I really have no attachment to you whatsoever. Like, I don't
Yeah.
give a shit what happens to you, Julia.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it sacrifices her as a character to enhance his, and I think that that's why I didn't really like her that much.
Yeah. No, I feel it. I feel it, and I think maybe even like 10 more pages with Faye would have done would have filled
Yeah.
exactly what you're missing there. Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel it. I feel it. I agree with your rankings of the crew of the Bebop.
Mhm.
I do like Edward. I think Edward grew on me though. I originally watched Edward I originally watched Cowboy Bebop in Japanese. So Edward's even the voice is even more grating in that version. Um, but it's okay. I think having the comedic relief of the characters is really cool. I think the character also makes herself useful. I think she's really necessary, not just to the Bebop crew, but to kind of capturing that the beautiful and pure sense of adventure, which contrasts with the rest of the crew. Right, they're already Jet's in his mid-30s, but Spike and Faye are in their 20s, and they're already like their lives are shit, and
Yeah.
they've lost that sense of adventure through space. Like they're going through space, and they're bored. Um, but for Edward and even for Ein, like this chapter in their lives, this year in their lives, is a really interesting. Is a really interesting time for them, and I think it's a really formative time for them. I think the only reason why Edward um, chooses to stay on Earth is because she recognizes a lot of the stuff that we talked about lost souls and about spectating that and about becoming indirectly motivated to confronting that.
Mhm.
Um, And so Edward is kind of this weird. Edward and Ein are these weird characters who are, if Spike is the anti-cowboy and Jet is the anti-detective and Faye is the anti-sci-fi protagonist, like Ed and Ein are like the anti-Cowboy Bebop, and they just kind of they're like a freaking electric guitar in a bebop set. And I think the comedic irony like also brings home a lot of the episodes. So many times the main three fail, and Ein end up winning. I think it's I agree that like you're not the first person to say that about Ed.
Yeah, I when I was researching, I kind of came across that I'm not alone in the anti-Edward boat.
Yeah, like a lot of people don't like the character, or just it just rubs them the wrong way, or they get annoyed, and I think that's totally fine. I think that's very valid. For me, the character grew on me, especially on this second watch, and there's and so that's kind of how I feel about it. So it didn't bug me through this watch. Maybe it'll bug me through the third one. I don't know. A little bit about Ein, the scenario writer or Watanabe was talking about the scenario writer who came up with the idea of Ein being a corgi. He said, I had a very strong request from the scenario writer that she really loved corgis, and when we had to have and we had to have a corgi. She told me there's no other way of doing any other type of dogs. It had to be a corgi. So it's basically just someone's obsession that is the reason Ein is there, which I love. But yeah, I agree. I think Faye is the best character, and Spike, and then Jet. We've talked a little bit about the remix of the Femme Fatale, and kind of how she subverts that. And as we before we transition to the ending of each character, why don't you talk a little bit about what you liked about Faye?
Yeah, I like that she was a femme fatale character. I like that she actually had like agency and action. That was super cool. She would just disappear from the Bebop for like a few days and then just come back with whatever. She's just like would stroll on like nothing happened. I just like that she was her own person, and that's always cool to see. She also had the most interesting backstory, and the one that I actually was like most curious to see how it played out. I mentioned that she was like the most deeply rooted in the sci-fi theme. I think each character kind of had a genre to their backstory. She was sci-fi, Spike was Western, and Jet was noir. And so I liked hers the most. I think it had the most meat to it. I was probably more heartbroken at her like sitting in the empty destruction of her childhood home more than I was at Spike's potential death. I think it was the saddest moment in the show, and she just had the most meat on her bones, I think, and so I just like her for that. Her gambling backstory was super cool too. Her conning Jet out of literally everything was a great just like levity scene in the show. Yeah, I just like that she's as smart as Spike, and kind of as badass, but she has this whole backstory that's also the most interesting. She just had the most to dig our teeth into, really.
Yeah, 100% agree. Especially with that same shot that you mentioned. With Spike's death, I think it's bittersweet. It's kind of what he wants. So it's not that sad. But I think with Faye, it's the saddest because I talked about you're going to carry that weight being like pointed at us, but it's also just pointed at her. Like as soon as she realized the Cowboy Bebop is where she belongs, she comes back and Ed's gone, Ein's gone, and Spike's on his way out, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. I get a little emotional when she watches the tape, and recognizes herself, and when she is in the house, but when she's like just openly weeping and firing her gun into the air. I think that's the part that gets me every time. I love what you said about the sci-fi thing. You know, tech and science kept her alive, but it also condemned her to solitude, and it's really, really sad and really, really interesting. I think of all the I think of all the characters too. She's the most controversial. When they showed the live action photos of the Bebop crew, and I think part of that is sexism from the fan. I think a big part of that is sexism from the fan base, but I think part of that is also because a lot of people really resonate with this character and really relate to her. You know, it's easy to have a big-titted anime character, but it's difficult to make that character as likable and as relatable as her. What did you think of the way we leave with Jet?
I like it. I think it makes the impact of every other story hit a little harder because he is just left alone again, like he probably was before Spike came around. We don't really see any of him on the Bebop before anyone, I don't think.
Right.
But it gives more weight to that, especially Ed leaving. I think you feel that impact with him the most because he did become that father figure to all of them. I like that his gets wrapped up pretty early and he has like time to kind of like move on from it, like in front of us. Like we kind of see him be like accept that his former love is gone and kind of gain that back. The stopwatch thing was a bit, or pocket watch was a bit on the nose. I thought that was kind of heavy handed with him like throwing it on. I'm not stuck in time anymore, kids. I thought that was a bit heavy handed, but
Sure.
overall, I felt for him at the end. Him gaining a family and then kind of losing it once he realized what he had was pretty tragic. So I like the way his ended. It was the most neatly wrapped up, maybe. Phase was too, but I think there's a little bit of a bow on top of his past storyline.
Yeah, it's interesting. In Toys in the Attic, he talks about they all kind of talk about their own philosophies and or what the main lesson of the day is, right? And Jet talks about this guy who goes out and tries to get rich and then loses it all and then has to learn the lesson over and over again. And then that ends up being exactly what you mentioned, which is so crazy. Such great writing. Oh my gosh. Holy shit. And yeah, that's episode 11. Jeez. He has the nickname the Black Dog because he can never let things go. You know, I think at his heart and in the core of his being, Jet cares most about, or Jet craves most about stability. And we see him at the very beginning. He's cooking dinner for his partner, and when Ed leaves, Ed leaves at the worst possible time because he just found this treasure trove of boiled eggs, and they're all about to eat this amazing feast of eggs that he prepared for everybody. And as soon as that happens, Ed leaves. Jet also has a garden. He's basically a house husband. He wants to be a house husband, but he'll never get it because he can't let his bounties go. He can't let he can never let go of the chase. And so his very tenacity, the thing that makes him the great private eye, the thing that makes him the great noir hero or noir anti-hero is the thing that literally condemns him to being alone.
Yeah.
It's really, really sad. And I think the last shot we see of him is him cleaning the interior of the Bebop. I could be wrong though. I'm not sure.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I also like. I thought it was really interesting when Ed left that they, the whole entire series, they're complaining about being hungry, and then they're just stuffing their faces as soon as they have food because they're so sad.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. And I guess last but not least, Spike's death.
Yeah.
Why do you think they went with that? And how do you feel about it and the way it was handled?
I think they kind of had to end it that way. I kind of would have liked a little less ambiguity. I think they should have just killed him off and made sure that he was dead. I think he's dead, but it seems to be a bit of a controversial ending for people because it is open ended. But like the whole show, well, not the whole show. Up until Julia's death, he thinks, "Am I dead? Is this all a dream, or am I alive and actually living this?" He thinks he might be dead, and so it's only fitting that he does die and kind of finishes that loop, because really he was dead the whole time, not in a literal sense, but like his fate chose that he should die before he actually did die, and so I think him narrowly escaping death every time was kind of a heavier burden on him, and so it was only fitting that he died, and that he had to die because of Vicious. I don't think that they could have really done anything better, except for maybe the Julia stuff, but that's in the past by the time he dies. It is a cool catalyst to him storming the headquarters of Vicious, but yeah, I think they did a good job with his death.
Nice. Yeah. For me, I just love him so much, so I wish he's alive. But I remember texting you to watch all the way through the credits. When you see all the way through, as early as I think Jupiter Jazz, the Indian oracle Laughing Bull talks about the stars, and every time when a warrior dies, that's a shooting star. And so you see as after Jet has collapsed after Spike collapses to the ground and says bang, which is another item in the case of him dying. There's a star that fades out. Before
there's also two shooting stars when Ed leaves. I don't know if that's related to Spike, but
I think it is. And I think his death was also heroic and honorable because it's because of his attack that Faye and Jet get to go free, and that they aren't going to be killed by the Syndicate. They're going to be lonely, but they're both on the Bebop, and I can imagine in my head a fan fiction of them finding redemption maybe 10 years or maybe 20 years later.
Yeah. I'm sure there's other fan fictions of them too.
Yeah. Yeah. Not into those, but another thing is when he does the finger gun and says bang, it's a reference to episode 6, Sympathy for the Devil. When Wen is dying, he asks Spike, he's like, I feel relieved. Do you know what that's like? And Spike says, yeah, I know what that's like, as if. So he doesn't know what that relief means. But then when he references it again at the very end, he's saying like, okay, I'm relieved now. Because this guy has been a killer since he was a child. He's never really known peace. He's never really known goodness until he leaves the life of the Syndicate and becomes capable. And we see that he's capable of good, especially in where is it? Waltz for Venus, when he the really sad one with the brother and the blind sister and all that stuff. And even in Cowboy Funk, which pits him against an over the top version of himself, like. Yeah. I think that awakens him to some sort of truth about himself, and I think that's why that episode is so late in the game. And I like that he's kind of numb the whole time until he's given the opportunity to confront Vicious finally. The only time we really see him like incredibly sad is when Julia dies, and really see him mourn. And so it's interesting. I think the way they handled it. There's also the song that plays after every credit is the Real Folk Blues. The chorus goes, "I only want to know what true sadness feels like. Sitting in muddy water isn't such a bad life if it ends after the first time." So it's about being stuck, about being, about accepting your fate, about embracing, and about getting out of that numbness that you feel after heartbreak. Also, it's the Real Folk Blues is a fun little homage, because the Real Folk Blues is an album by Muddy Waters, and the lyric says Muddy Water. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that stagnation's a big theme, because all everybody on the Bebop kind of wants this liberation from their past, but they're stuck in this broke, hungry, stagnated life until they can let that past go. And so it really ties in throughout the show. And so I do like that song.
Hell yeah. Well, we're 100 minutes in. Favorite episodes?
I'm down.
Let's do it.
All right. We've kind of mentioned a few of mine already. I think the first great episode is episode 5, Ballad of the Fallen Angels.
Incredible.
It's the first one you get kind of backstory, like meaty backstory on Spike when old mentor Mao Yenrai gets a hit put out on him, and you see it's really the first time that like the past creeps into the show and is like, oh, now they have to confront this directly, or one character does while the other people are like, it's just a bounty, let's do this. Something that happens quite often throughout, especially with Jet's former lover. And it's cool. I like it a lot. It's a real fucking badass episode. So it made my list.
Nice. Yeah, I love it as well. I think it's up there with my favorite duels in the entire thing. I love the kind of stalemate that they have where Vicious throws him out the window, but he throws a grenade at him. I love the setting of a cathedral for a duel between two warriors. I think it's amazing. It plays into the when it's interesting because Japan's not super Christian, but when they when they bring in Christian imagery, it's always like really grandiose and really like over the top. But I still like it a lot. They even talk about themselves becoming demons after becoming when they enter the syndicate. Vicious talks about that. And I love the choir when Spike starts falling out the window. That's when this for me as well was a big hook episode. It's on my list as well, because I was liking it through the first 4 episodes. I remember the first time I was watching, I was like, okay, I like this. This is cool. I can see why people like it. And then like, oh shit, this is art house. This is interesting. Like, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I do also have the honorable mention of the previous episode, Gateway Shuffle, which is that environmental terrorist episode we already kind of touched on.
Yeah.
I just like fuck PETA, and so it's fun when when TV shows kind of have that tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Next, I actually really liked the second half of the show, or like the kind of end of the middle section of it. Namely, you probably also really enjoyed this because we're both Alien fans. But 11, Toys in the Attic.
Yeah.
The bottle episode. I loved it. I thought it was great. It's a cool little horror. And it was interesting and it was well executed. And it was the first one that I was like, oh, this is like different for the show. Like this is completely out of left field for Bebop. And so it renewed my enjoyment of the show pretty hard.
Yeah. I love Toys in the Attic. It's kind of the Fly equivalent of the way fans responded to Fly in Breaking Bad is the same way fans respond to Toys in the Attic. They either absolutely love it or they don't. And you kind of get that first contrast between the different worldviews, right? Jets is about the kind of loop that a man goes through in life when they work so hard for a goal and then they lose everything and they have to relearn it again. And then Faye is about not trusting anybody. Edward is kind of nonsense, and then Spike is just like, don't leave things in the fridge, because he still sincerely doesn't care about it, about his own life. And I think that's really cool. I also love the use of the flamethrower. It's not on my short list of favorite episodes, but I love every episode. So I could totally remix every single one that I highlighted, and it would still be a valid list for me. But I'm glad you liked that episode. I was wondering what you would think.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I was predictable in liking it, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
Nice. I had for the first half. I also had Sympathy for the Devil and Heavy Metal Queen, and Jupiter Jazz. But I've already talked a bunch about Sympathy for the Devil. Heavy Metal Queen, I love that it's a happy ending, but I also think it's absolutely badass the way they solve everything in the mine.
Just the truckers is also just a badass concept for space too.
They talk on radios. Like, this is 2071 and they're using radio. Like, this is amazing.
And like all have like nicknames and shit. Like it's just cool.
You get the one trucker who's obsessed with like stuffed animals. So good. Yeah. What else you got?
My next one was actually Jupiter Jazz, so we can both hop on that. The first dual part episode, you get the introduction of Julia, like the real meat of Julia here. Vicious also gets some cool shit here. Faye has a nice little tangent kind of away from the Bebop type story on this one. And it's cool to give like something that I missed through this show was like episodes with like real meaty plot lines. And so when they have these two-parters, it's a nice little hey, here's a little more on your plate for an episode. And I like it a lot for those reasons.
Hell yeah. Yeah, Jupiter Jazz is one of my it probably is my favorite, just because they have the time for, like you said, a meteor plot line, but they also have time for like really long meditative scenes of music, like just music. And I think that's really, really incredible, especially for an anime. There's not a whole lot that do that. And if there are, like, I haven't found them yet. The fighting is also really cool too. Like, as soon as he gets compared to Vicious, Spike gets insane, like gets more angry than we ever see him in the entire show. He punches a dent into a metal pole, like when someone says like, "Are you Vicious?" Like, geez, dude, like, come on. And I love Gren's backstory. I think that death was also one of the most memorable of the deaths in the entire show. The idea of going back to the place where the idea of going back to the place of the source of your trauma as your like final act, I think foreshadows Spike's death. But it just on its own is really, really sad and really brilliantly done. I love that they kind of abandon the real folk blues song and just do this really amazing like drum beat as you pan up to the sky and you see the star fade out. Mm-hmm. Excellent choice.
Thank you. The next chronologically was probably Perot Le Fou. It was great. It was a nice horror episode.
Yeah.
It was another one that was unique and stood out and had a cool atmosphere that I really latched onto. It was kind of Paprika-esque with the carnival theme, which I liked.
Right.
Yeah, it was just a fun, good, like, bounty episode.
Yeah, dude. There are like the images of those like animals in the theme park will like stay buried in my head forever. Goodness gracious. I love it. Pierrot. I don't know how to pronounce it either. I'm not French. But he's got a really interesting backstory too. And it's revealed with a Pink Floyd cover. Like, I was like, oh man, that's cool. And like they nailed it. They captured the spirit of Pink Floyd, but they still made it feel new. Absolutely love that backstory. The thing with the cats is also so creepy and disturbing. It's profoundly interesting character. My next chronologically was actually Speak Like a Child. We talked a bunch about it already, but the idea of Faye versus tech versus memory, and then her finally getting tears in her eyes, like this hardened individual who uses so many people as means to an end and doesn't and appears to have no like soft side whatsoever is, when she sees the video, there's something unlocked in her again, and it's one of the best close-ups in the entire series, and the way they animate it looks like real tape, like it looks like it was shot on tape, and so I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, that one very narrowly missed my list. I only didn't include it because I wanted to narrow it down as much as I could.
Yeah.
Great fucking episode. My second to last, I guess, or third to last, depending on how you look at it. Cowboy Funk, the battle of the egos.
Same.
the Teddy Bomber, I have mixed feelings on. But he's just this goofy backdrop for Andy and Spike to kind of square off, and his like just desire for attention when he's blowing up these buildings and like the people catching him don't really give a shit about him. Was hilarious, and it was one of the episodes that I laughed probably most at, and so it was cool. Andy was awesome, like really leaning into the Western thing type character. And he was a good foil for Spike to satiate the lack of vicious throughout the series. It was great. It was just another good fun episode.
I love Teddy Bomber. I think it's their kind of they censored the episode on Adult Swim initially because in 2001 9/11 happened.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
So they censored that episode initially, but in the future runs they included it. And it's one of my favorites as well. I think to me it's them completely taking the piss out of or completely just roasting the Unabomber. This a really scary figure in that time period that kind of shocked the whole world. To them, they show someone who's like him, and he's just a clown. He's nothing, and he gets beaten by a rich clown like a wannabe. This wannabe warrior is his greatest fear in life, and I absolutely love that about the episode.
And like just the scene where he's like, Andy keeps thinking Spike is the bomber. He's like, no, it's clearly that guy. He's wearing a bear costume. It's just hilarious.
It's amazing. I love Andy so much. When he tries to seduce Faye and it like just doesn't work at all.
No. He comes back with all his props.
And he's like, this is authentic cowboy stew. And it like tastes like shit.
Which, to be fair, probably did.
It probably did, but he's drinking it. Like he's drinking it out of the bowl. I love it. And the ending when he becomes a samurai is like it's perfect. Fucking perfect.
Yeah, Andy's great.
See you, Space Samurai.
Yeah. My last one was just the final 2 episodes. I feel like that's kind of a given.
Yeah.
It's the Ozymandias and Felina of Cowboy Bebop. We were gonna include it. Surprise.
Yeah.
So shout out Real Folk Blues. I think they wrapped it up very neatly in a bow. You
Sorry.
hello. You're good. We talked about pretty much every ending and everything that happens in this episode. So I don't know if I have much else to add to it, but I think they did a pretty good job ending it.
What was your favorite action scene action moment in the episode? Because there's a lot of them.
Yeah, probably that final face off with Spike and Vicious. Just them passing the weapons is fucking badass. And
Yeah.
it's a sword versus a pistol, so it's gonna be, if you pull it off, it's gonna be cool. And so it was.
Yeah. I think one of the most underrated ones out of all of them is one of the most underrated ones in the whole series is the team up between Julia and Faye that just happens. And like Faye gets the tires on one shot each, like 2 bullets, 2 cars, no problem. I love it. It's so badass. I like kind of putting the femme fatales together. I think that was cool, and you get like this kind of wishful thinking in the middle of the episode. Like she's like, "Hey, you want to team up?" And she's like, "Nah." And I'm like, damn it, that would have been so cool. That could have been season 2.
Cool little spin-off.
Yeah, but it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I love it. I love the Real Folk Blues as well. I also want to shout out Hard Luck Woman. I know you're not a big Ed and Nine person, but or at least an Edward person. But when this character grew on me, I really appreciated that they had the fallout of Ed leaving really show in the characters of Jet and Spike. And I love that Spike puts the windmill on the nose of the Bebop. I thought that was really sweet.
Cute.
Yeah, and you get that really awesome shot of Faye and her in the house that she used to live in. I thought that was brilliant, and the contrast between her and her friend from high school, in a wheelchair and in her 70s, like so haunting. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad.
Me too. It would have been a bit of a drag if I didn't.
How do we? I guess we can do this on the air. How do we feel about watching more anime? Do you want to watch something that's like similar or like super different, or like we can do horror, we can do horror action, we can do comedy, or
I feel like something different would be cool.
Okay.
I'd be down.
Okay. I got one that's shorter, but still I think visually just equally as rich, and I think has characters that you would love. So I'll send you the title right now.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, audience. So that was Cowboy Bebop, one of the most critically acclaimed anime of all time. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Anything you want to say to the people, Jared, before we head out?
No.
All right. All right, folks. We love you. Go watch Cowboy Bebop on Hulu or Funimation. And goodbye.
See ya, Space Cowboy.